So you've taken your clones and you've flipped a flower. Now what? In this video, we're going to review the first few weeks of flower so you'll know what to expect. We'll also point out some potential pitfalls and reveal our pro tips for setting yourself up for an amazing harvest. I'm Dr. Judd with GreenCert MD. Let's get into it. During the first few weeks of flower, it may not look like a lot is going on, but in reality, your plant is hard at work transitioning to enable it to have the best chance to propagate. Winter is not far away, and soon, signs of flowering will appear. Before we get into today's video, if you're new here, welcome! We're glad you're here. It would really help us out if you clicked like, smash that subscribe button, and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming content. We continue to fight the good fight against our digital overlords, and in an effort to help get our content out of a shadow ban, I'd really appreciate your taking the time to comment on the video down below, share it with your fellow growers, as engagement is what tells the algorithm that our content is worth showing to others. I really appreciate everyone's help on last week's video, and I will continue to be in your debt if we can keep the video engagement high for the time being. Oh, here's a fun fact I learned. If you attempt to drop a link to an age-restricted video in a subsequent video, like I like to do like up here, YouTube won't show it. So that's why I seem to point to the upper right corner where nothing appears, not just once, but twice in the last video. Also, I forgot last week to give a quick shout out to our friends over at 420 Chief, with whom I recently recorded a podcast. Check out the podcast in the link below, and as the son of an Air Force officer myself, I just want to tell every veteran out there, thank you for your service, your commitment, and your sacrifice for our nation. Finally, as with all of my videos, this video is intended for medical educational purposes only. I am not diagnosing or treating any condition you may have, and please know and comply with all applicable laws wherever you may live. In the first few weeks of flowering, our plants undergo a remarkable transition where they realign their priorities from continued growth and development to the production of flower. This can present with a period of rapid growth where the plant can double in height. This is known as the stretch phase. As you can see here, these plants are virtually twice the height they were when we initially placed them in this tent just 3 short weeks ago. During this initial stretch period, your plant will have an increased need for growing nutrients. This manifests itself in my house and garden feeding schedule as an increase in the base nutrient amount supplied during these initial weeks. If you are planning on switching from a growing nutrient line to a flowering-oriented nutrient line, be sure to stay with growing nutrients for at least a week into the flowering phase before making the switch. But again, if this is your first grow, my recommendation is to select a nutrient line and largely follow their provided schedule. Now is also a time to consider low-stress training, which is a method of bending stems down and away from the center of the plant to get a more even canopy for grow light exposure. We'll have more on this in a future video. In week 2, you may begin to spot the first white pistils growing on your female cannabis plants. These are fine and wispy white hairs that will develop at those locations where the big fan leaves meet the main stem. It is these fine hairs that will later become the flowers. Now, if you start to see something like this, instead of something like this, then it appears you may have a male plant, or at least one that has hermed on you, and I would recommend getting rid of this plant, as male plants don't produce flowers, and they will pollinate your female plants, making them produce seeds, which you don't want to have happen. Now, a quick note on plants which herm on you. This is usually due to stress, and sometimes during your first few grows, and at times even with experienced growers, something will happen to stress the plant, or perhaps a particular plant is just exceedingly sensitive to some type of stress, and a hermia will occur. Oftentimes, you may not even catch it. In other cases, this is an inbred genetic tendency of the strain, with some strains doing this even without significant stress, particularly in the late bloom phase, as a way to create seeds even when not previously exposed to male pollen. I remember a harvest when I was just starting out that had one branch on one plant which had a few seeds which appeared when trimming. I never found more than 5 or 10 seeds, and this was likely a late bloom phase hermie due to the genetics of that strain. Well, that or I just got really lucky that the entire tent didn't pollinate right before harvest. At this point, The phase of maximal stretch should be passed, and your plant's continued growth should be slowing, though not stopped. At the locations where you previously saw some hairs, you can now see the first signs of real buds developing. There still won't be many resin glands and trichomes on your plants, which means that the smell won't be too pungent yet either. It's at this point that your plant is really completing the transition to bud creation, with more and more energy directed on growing flowers and not leaves. Now is also a good time to check for potential nutrient deficiencies, as these past few weeks of increased growth can unmask some problems, and with another 4 to 8 weeks to go, now is a good time to address those deficiencies while we still have time to correct them. If you'd like to see us cover various nutrient deficiencies and how to identify and correct them, let us know in the comment section below. Now is also the time to do a little bit of final defoliation, to simply remove any huge fan leaves that are blocking significant light. I don't go crazy here because, again, I don't want to be the one to induce plant stress and cause it to harm. It's more of just a quick trim up of anything that I might have missed or been on the fence about a week before flipping that I can now clearly let go. By week 4, your plant has likely ceased growing, and it is now exclusively spending energy on flower production. There will still be some white hairs sticking out of the buds, but the buds themselves should now be adding some definition that previously might not have been noticeable. With more and larger flowers developing, your plants will produce more trichomes, and odor should be noticeable at this point. So there you go, you're almost halfway through the flowering phase. Our current grow is just now completing week 3 and moving into week 4, and it seems to be doing well. But how is your grow doing? Let us know in the comments below what additional growing content you'd like to see. I also have more videos from Spanibus in Barcelona, Spain coming, though those don't tend to do so well. And finally, we have some behind-the-scenes coverage of Royal Queen seeds coming, along with an interview with their founder, so be sure to subscribe for those upcoming videos. Also, I wanted to give a huge thanks to our current crew of Patreon supporters. You mean the world to us, and I hope you all enjoy the freebies we sent your way for 420. If you'd like to join our community of like-minded growers and support the channel, check out the link below to Patreon. So that's it for now, and until I see you again, puff puff and pass it on. Now is also the time that I do a little bit of Now is also the time in which Now is also the time to do a little bit of final defoliation.